Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about DevOps today, and I suppose a good place to start maybe is if you've got a DevOps program, how do you know, if you like, if it's delivering, particularly if you think it's kind of working okay, but unbeknownst to you, it may actually be able to be operating, at a much better rate. So I guess, what are the telltale signs if it's not quite delivering?
Yeah, well, I think, in our market, Phil, we have DevOps solutions that are quite focused on developing and enhancing customers' IBMI applications in particular. And some of these applications that our customers have are decades old in some cases within an organization, but they're very much running the core business processes within our customers' organizations. These are ERP systems, transaction processing systems, retail sites, and so they're very reliable and resilient systems. But as the business processes change, the applications that we support for our customers, they also have to change, even the older ones. And so I think when you have an IBMI application, I think the first question is whether, is it adapting? Is it evolving to meet the needs of the evolving organization? And as other systems are growing up around it, there's this question of, is the development of the core application happening in conjunction with the work being done on other applications? And so there's this integrated IT environment, and so we need integrated application development. And so your IBMI application development should be just as agile as the rest of your application development.
Okay, and if there are sort of some, I say roadblocks, at least bumps in the road, I mean, is it generally, in your experience, is it because of one of people, process, or product? Does it tend to be a combination of those factors? I say, are there a typical sort of, you've alluded obviously if people aren't updating their solution, that's part of the problem, but are there other things that people need to be aware of, I say, with those three things that might be causing some disruption?
I mean, I think there's a number of factors to look at, and I think the challenge coming up front with some of these older applications is the teams need to shift sometimes from a waterfall model to a more agile development model. And if that shift isn't happening, I think that's going to manifest itself in far longer development cycles. And so that's one observation that could lead to just a shift in the business process around development. And then, could it be about the talent? I mean, I think what we found is that the development, can happen on a familiar DevOps or agile process. More engineers are able to engage productively with the older applications if you've got a more familiar set of tooling. And so the tooling and the structure is more modern. You can have more individuals that are familiar with the tool sets, and integrating with industry standard tools like Git and Jira bring more people in the fold and the opportunity to work with these systems. And then I think these tools don't easily fold necessarily into maybe x86 development tools. And so I think there's many stages of development, like deploying or testing, that are actually remarkably manual on some of the existing systems. And so the ones that are closest to the work, the request, the development, the deployment should help point to the answers.
Okay, and in terms of identifying the key characteristics of a, shall we say, I don't know, a modern or a digital DevOps solution, what are the components? And maybe as a sort of sub question, are there sort of some essentials that every credible DevOps solution needs to have, and then maybe some nice to have sort of add-ons it's good to have, but they're not sort of absolutely vital to make everything work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Phil. I mean, I think you don't necessarily have to have the modern solution fully integrated into a single application, but I think you might have different components, and you might use Jira for your ticketing, for example. And so your solution might integrate there. But on the IBMI platform, which we work very closely with, there's special nuances to a code repository, for example. And so that has to be very specific to the domain. And I think if we look at our solutions in this place, there's a mix of integration with industry standards and then platform specific solutions that are needed, right? And so our goal is to bring the best of platform domain knowledge on the IBMI together with integration around industry standards, so you can bring in developers that are familiar with other platforms into the fold and have that integrated solution. But on our platform and specifically, there are often very strict compliance and audit trails needed. For example, we have a lot of customers that are in the banking and financial markets business. And so there are regulators that want to understand if an application changed, who changed it and when, who changed the code, who checked it in, who reviewed, and so on and so forth. And that's really important for someone in the banking industry. And so as these critical systems are being modified, customers need to retain that compliance capability. And so a solution in our space without that type of native audit and compliance capability would be a real problem for many of our customers. I think in terms of nice to haves, I think there's others like extending into the testing capabilities and test data management, reporting capabilities. You can always do more or less directly in the DevOps solution itself, but then there are other focused solutions in test or reporting that you might integrate with, but might be nice to have from a pure DevOps capability. So I think that's my perspective on that. Yeah.
And in terms of if say you've become aware that you do need to do something about your DevOps, your existing DevOps solution, is it fairly obvious most of the time whether you can kind of upgrade with that existing solution to continue getting, hopefully getting better results, or you might need to actually, look for a different vendor, different solution? I say, is that an easy decision to make? Because clearly many companies, well, most companies probably don't like to have to migrate to a completely new solution or platform if they don't have to. But what are I suppose, the trade-offs between carrying on with the tried and tested and making that leap?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting question. I think in our market, it's actually interesting. There's quite a few customers that really have no DevOps solution at all around their IBMI development. And so I think there's an opportunity there to extend some agile practices to the critical system of IBMI. And that's often what we see in our market. And we also occasionally see those that do development and have a DevOps solution. We occasionally see customers switching toolings, but it's usually motivated by a need for broader functionality. And so they're seeking a more integrated solution. Perhaps it could be stronger reporting, stronger compliance, but there's switching costs. There's switching costs as there would be for any solution. And so, I think the question is how many of the processes can be more efficient and how much time can be saved for the individuals involved, whether that's the developer developing the application or whether that's the compliance and reporting needs of the audit teams.
Okay. And in terms of the chosen DevOps solution, how important or not is it? I'm sure you're aware, it always fascinates me, there are all these different kind of ops technologies. So we've got, say, AI ops. I mean, there's even DevSecOps, which I guess is not too far away from DevOps itself. And then something like value stream management. They all seem to be, in the vicinity of DevOps. How important is it that your DevOps solution, integrates seamlessly or very easily with those kind of other ops solutions?
Yeah, I mean, for our customers, I think the primary connection points in our markets are with the industry standard technologies like Jira and Git and perhaps like Jenkins for releases. But beyond that, I think some organizations do extend their capabilities and certainly an interesting intellectual exercise, but I think for many companies that's where it stops, and you have really separate domains with these other ops solutions. I think I'm a believer that investing in solutions that help streamline IT processes and ease the work of the teams is something that's really important. And for many organizations, the notion of AI ops integration isn't quite yet a pressing pain point. So we meet customers where they are and deliver support to get them to their operational efficiency targets.
Okay, and maybe I was going to save it for the end, but perhaps bear in mind that answer, it now might be the time to, I know I've talked to some people, because I've done quite a lot of work, for example, in the AI ops space. There's a suggestion that everything might end up under this sort of digital operations management sort of umbrella. Is that a realistic, or bearing in mind what you said, do you think they will all keep to their own sort of disciplines and have a loose coming together, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Well, I think it's, the market's necessarily going to evolve. We'll see capabilities as part of broader solution suites. I agree with that notion. I think we'll see different components popping into the DevOps workflow, like security and compliance have now, right? So you've seen the security and compliance capabilities come into the DevOps workflow. And I expect that, for some of the organizations, there's going to be a bias towards standardizations and towards solution suites, and then others will look for the best of breed tools on an individual basis. But I think any engineer will explain, why this particular solution kind of requires some unique nuances. And certainly that's true with applications on platforms that we support, like the IBM I, where there's some very unique requirements in that space. And so, I wouldn't bet on everything getting tidied up and rolled into a single solution, not any more than, in other adjacent domains. I think you're going to continue to see a mix of point solutions and broader solution suites, like in systems management or in ERP. I think the notion of a complete and final solution is a little bit of a pipe dream, right? But I'm really, kind of overjoyed to be part of the industry that's continuing to innovate and tackle both existing and emerging challenges in this space.
Okay, and maybe that's good to move on to then the sort of final piece of the jigsaw is what it is that yourselves, Rocket Software, what is it that you obviously explained some stuff as we've gone through the questions, answers, but if you can explain Rocket Software, what you do in that DevOps space, and maybe if you're able to share a bit of, what's maybe around the corner as well. But
yeah, sure. So we offer solutions in the mainframe IBM Z and then the IBM I space. And so in IBM I in particular, where we have a very strong offering, we have a solution called Rocket Aldon for DevOps, which supports the agile development of IBM I applications. And so it integrates with and supports distributed development, as well as kind of knowing that often those activities happen to occur in lockstep on the distributed side and on the IBM I side. And so our focus is really on this unique situation where customers are trying to enhance their mission critical applications and need the support to do that in a modern way. And so it's a fascinating opportunity to help customers impact the way that they do business by enhancing their core applications, and yet integrating those activities with the rest of their integrated IT environment. And so that's really where we focus at Rocket Software.
And so are you able to give us any hints as to what's coming in the next 12 or 18 months from yourselves? Is it more of the same, or any sort of step changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the challenges is, we're seeing an increasing move of IBM I applications to the cloud. And so that's an emerging trend, right? And so supporting that continuing and evolving market of our customer base as they begin to move some of their core IBM I applications to the cloud is an important focus for us. And I think second is continuing to stay on top of the key integrations of very popular third-party applications that are best-of-breed applications in the DevOps space on the whether it's open source or distributed system or cloud native applications around code repositories, around ticketing, and make sure that IBMI development shops have the opportunity to integrate with those best of breed tools while moving to the cloud and run an integrated DevOps solution across their enterprise, so that the IBMI key systems are not left out of that development process and treated completely separately.
Excellent. Maybe just finally then, it'd be good to, you said a lot of people maybe haven't started on their DevOps journey in your particular space, but whether it's those folks or people that are and maybe aren't getting the results, as other one or two key bits of advice you'd leave them with as to, where to start, what to do to sort of get up to speed.
Yeah, well, I think that the IBMI platform, especially for customers that have that platform and don't see those tools that are familiar to them, our focus on integrating with tools that are common in the distributed and cloud space is an opportunity to take a look at Rocket Software and see how we can help customers integrate their IBMI development processes with the rest of their DevOps activities. And so I think that's, it's been something of a black box for many IT organizations, where it's difficult and challenging to open up that development process with the rest of the IT organization. And so with capabilities that we bring to bear from Rocket Software to help integrate that DevOps process with your other activities, I think that can reduce the burden of making changes and reporting on compliance and updating your applications, so that you bring your IBMI applications along that journey of modernizing your applications infrastructure.
Excellent. Well, Chris, it's been great to chat to you today. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Phil, and appreciate the time. Take care.
Thank you.